Decided to change it up a little bit today. I'm going to show you guys a video of Devon Larratt being interviewed by Fridman. I'm going to pause it at certain points. Devon just went through sort of his training protocol for arm wrestling. Devon is one of the best arm wrestlers in the history of arm wrestling. He talked about 3 lifts, talks about 90% of his training being 3 lifts in the gym. No need to go through them. Those of you that train with me at Fit for Life, we actually do these or some version of them. When we go over to the table, the lower arm work, we do these things. We do them for different reasons, mostly to preserve our elbows and strengthen our wrists so that our wrists stay straight in our dumbbell barbell lifts. Most people are playing mercy with the bar. But for arm wrestling, it's really about pronation and getting the wrist to flex. So you're pulling the arm of the other person toward the body, and he goes through these 3 lifts. Some of it's a little bit technical, but I want you to listen to what Devon says about what the training is. Listen to what Lex says, what it isn't, what he didn't mention, and listen to what Devon says that it is.
It's funny that you didn't mention bicep curls or...
well, it's a chain.
Okay, he didn't mention bicep curls. Devon says it's a chain. It's a chain of what? It's a chain of movement. And those of you, again, that train with me at Fit for Life, when have I ever said, okay, I really want you to isolate and only think about your pec muscles when you're benching? Or do I say, I want you to drive your feet into the floor? I want you to think about breathing into your belly. I want you to squeeze your butt. I want you to get your shoulders down. I want you to grab the bar real tight. I want you to envision not pushing the bar up, but pushing yourself into the bench. I want you to think about spreading the bar across a little bit so that you can engage your lats and sort of bending the bar a little bit. I want you to think about bringing the bar straight up and straight down. I want you to think about, getting the scapula down and back. I want you to squeeze the middle of your back. All these instructions, and we can go on and on here, about keeping your elbows under your wrists and everything else. It's the whole body. It's a chain. And it's not just the bench press. It's everything I have you guys do. Whether it's a squat, whether it's a deadlift, whether it's a single leg deadlift. Did you ever hear me saying in a single leg deadlift, or if you guys do kettlebell class, what am I constantly describing? I'm telling you guys, think about at the top of the swing in the kettlebell, I want you to think about squeezing your glutes and your abs, right? I want you to think about how you project that kettlebell. I want you to think about moving your hips back. I want you to think about keeping the big toes down and your knees out. I want you to think about there's a wire that goes across your knees and you keep that kettlebell up above that wire. All of this is being done in order to activate a chain. A chain. What Devon is giving and offering throughout this podcast is actually gold. And I found out the reason why is because he has the same training background that I received, which is in the Russian background of training, which is you don't go to failure. How many times have you guys seen me, those of you that lift with me, those of you that have seen me lift, go to failure? Almost always never. And in fact, the people that spot me, I tell them, don't let me fail. So if you see me failing, I don't sit there and grind it out. Okay, I will say, take it. The only time that I don't do that is in a competition. I don't want to fail, and I don't want my clients to fail. Because if you want to get strong, you don't fail on reps. There's a reason for it. It's because you're training your central nervous system. Volume is what is important. Quality reps over time is what builds strength. Strength is technique. That's the point. Strength is technique. I'm going to let them talk for a second here, and then I'm going to go on to them talking about eating a little bit.
It's chain. And so the idea, if you focus on these 3, the other stuff catches up. Like, it's all involved. This whole thing is involved.
So if you have an axe, right? The blade of the axe, that's these things, right? Like, you need the pointy end of all your attacks to be awesome. Right.
If you have a super sharp axe,
Yeah.
you could have a shitty handle.
Exactly. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So focus on that. The pointy, the tip of the axe.
Yeah, the tip of the axe is so important, right? Like if I have an awesome bicep and I can't quite use it, what's it good for, right?
Yeah. I think a lot of the motions with the wrist that you mentioned are just thinking about jiu-jitsu, especially in the gi.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, there's so much importance to this, and people don't often work it.
So I'll pause here. I have some experience in jiu-jitsu. I did that for a few years. And what he's about to describe are things that you do with the gi for chokes. And I can go into some of the most famous jiu-jitsu artists in the world who use white belt techniques on black belts who have been doing it for decades. And they do the most predictable chokes on them because masters do the basics well. They just do basic 4-4 chokes on black belts. It's unheard of. And the reason why is specifically because of this. It's about technique. It's about drilling over and over and over again. It's not just about showing somebody, oh, this is how you do it. It's tens of thousands of reps over time. I want to jump a little bit into the eating component here and just add a little bit to this.
I do have to return to diet real quick. I know we're talking about pancakes. Let me, quite seriously, you are one of the, strongest athletes in the world for your sport. So you have to get big, you have to get powerful, you have to get strong. What is the right diet for you for that? Like, what do you eat? How often do you eat? From the highest detail to the smallest, or the things that make you happy and feel good.
Yeah. I've experimented with every diet. I've done it all. I've been a vegan. I've done raw. I've eaten only meat. I've eaten balanced. I've eaten like a bodybuilder. You name it. I've probably tried it. I don't believe that it's as important in the sport of arm wrestling as it is perhaps in other sports.
So I'll pause right here. So just very quick, he's saying it's the sport of arm wrestling. And just to be very clear, Devon is a heavyweight. It's an unlimited division. This dude's about 6'6". And just to be clear, these guys that are best in the world, they're all on a lot of drugs. Of course, he doesn't talk about that here in this podcast, but you can listen to other things in the whole world of arm wrestling, and they're pretty candid about the drug use. Guys, if you're on anabolics, you can eat a lot of food. In fact, the most important thing is that you eat as much food as possible, because if you want to waste the drugs that you're on, then don't put on weight. The whole point is to put on weight. So out of context here, people that listen to this on a podcast that's the general listener, they'll have the impression that if I want to get really strong, I need to eat and eat and eat and eat. This is especially true if you're on a massive amount of steroids, which these guys do. If you're the average gym goer and you do that, I assure you, you will get fat. You will get unhealthy. The percentage of muscle that you can put on your body compared to fat will be asymmetrical if you try to do that, just to be clear. And this is part of the problem with listening to podcasts like this for the average listener. When you're talking about the best in the world, they're not fully candid with what they actually do. Again, I know this for a fact. I'm not speculating. You can go into other places to listen to the best arm wrestlers in the world. They will tell you what they're doing drug-wise, and it's not a little. These guys are monstrous individuals, some of them weighing over 300 pounds. But I do want to go into just one more segment here. I'll let him finish up what he's saying here.
I believe that, just to be very basic, if you're eating enough food, you're probably going to be okay.
See what I'm saying? If you're eating enough food,
it's a lot.
It's a lot of calories.
Really, not to overcomplicate it, but that's where the conversation starts. Are you eating enough food?
There you go. So
there was a study that I heard about.
I want you to hear this study. I want you to hear this again. And again, taken out of context, when people say things like this, they cite studies. And again, on a general podcast, we really need to, he's talking to a large crowd here. So let's put this in context. I'm very aware of this study. I want you to hear what he says. So 30, let's just go to 3601, okay?
High glycemic carbs into the mix. So those help, but that's for mass building.
Right. So there was a study that I heard about by somebody who's trying to identify heart attacks. They did this great big study. And at the end of it, I mean, didn't matter what the people ate. The most important thing was how they felt about the food that they were eating.
Okay. And it's not, just to be specific, it's not just about the food that they're eating, how they felt about the food they're eating. He's not speaking complete truth here. It's actually about how you feel while you're eating. Meaning, if you're home alone and you're going to the Ben and Jerry's and you're in a dark room watching Netflix and you're pounding it, all alone because you're trying to get that serotonin rush because you feel like a loser because you still can't lose those 25 pounds. And here I am pounding Ben and Jerry's because I'm such an idiot and I can't follow the simple instructions that Tom gives me when he tells me to do away with the shit that's in my freezer. And here I am. You get it? As opposed to you're with family, you sit down at a meal, it's good times, there's laughs. Okay, it's not just about how you feel about the food you're eating, it's the general mood that you're in when you're eating. There is research that shows that you metabolize this food better. Okay, what do you think it has to do with? It has to do with hormones. Does this also carry over to the belief systems that you have in the diet regimen that you're following? Yes, for sure, but okay, and you can map some of that onto a placebo effect and some of it certainly, again, hormonal effect. There's no question about it. Again, if you feel good about what you're doing and you're confident about what you're doing and you're very focused with what you're doing, that person tends to be very disciplined in what they're doing. They have a plan, okay, just like Devon. But again, your body becomes extremely insulin sensitive when you're on a lot of anabolics, which means that you can eat things like he literally right over here, that gold cap is a bottle of syrup that he drinks. You can get away with things like that when you're putting insane amounts of muscle on your body. Okay, but the problem becomes is what you're doing to your organs over time. Taken out of context to a general population, this is my criticism of the general podcast world. Okay, I assure you, if the average person just started telling themselves, I feel good about my pork roll, egg, and cheese every morning, and I feel good about that egg McMuffin, and I feel good about, that Chick-fil-A, for lunch on the way home. Guys, I promise you that person will suffer the consequences of the most horrid lipid panels that you could possibly imagine. This is the issue. Okay, Devon is giving gold here when it comes to strength and training. But when it comes to things that he isn't an expert on, he's being misleading. And we really need to understand things and studies and contexts. And hopefully, you guys, that makes sense to you guys, that this really, have a plan, make sure it's science-based, make sure it's appropriate for you. If you're a natural bodybuilder or you're a natural athlete, you follow protocols that actually make sense. When things are taken out of context, when you understand that the best in the world are actually on drugs and candid about it, what they can get away with is going to be different than what you can get away with. All right, so hopefully that makes sense. Thanks for listening. Please like it. Please share. Have a great rest of the day.